I like to be in control, and
It is. You know what's really great about all kids?
Don't have insurance.
Have a look at them and go, wow,
this is actually.
Hello, I am Scott Collins with the Los Angeles Times, and we are here for our Emmy Reality TV Roundtable. Roundtable. And I am here with Jane and Phil and RuPaul and Padma, and we're all here to talk about reality TV. First of all, do all of you know each other?
We do now.
Yeah, we've really got to know each other because somebody was late, and a key person in the production was late.
Right.
And so we had to kind of entertain ourselves.
Don't you hate that?
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about that, how unprofessional
It is really unprofessional.
Because none of us were late. You turned up. We all
I
turned
was
up.
early.
You were
I was.
super early. We were
I
all
slept
really early.
over actually.
Yeah, well, see, now you always go the
You
extra
were
mile.
I do.
That's why you look so good.
Yeah.
You had a good night's
Well, when
sleep.
something's
Right.
important, you want to represent,
You
right?
never want to be late.
Exactly.
You never want to.
Oh, God. You know, that's such a useful lesson for people who don't have that ethic. You know?
So when you spend that kind of time together,
Yeah.
breakfast, lunch, dinner,
Right. So it was kind of like a camping trip in a
It
way.
was a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What about before this camping trip? Did you guys?
I know Padma.
I know. Today is the first time I met Ru, but I know Phil.
No,
and
but I
Jane.
stood in line at the DMV with you in '98. I did.
I know you.
And I know
from the
you.
gay scene.
We hit the whole West Hollywood
But
scene.
no, gay mafia meetings, right?
Exactly.
Yes, right. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. The secret. Yeah. The secret handshake.
we met in the Equinox gym.
We sure did.
Yeah,
we
actually,
talked about that.
you don't remember. I remember. You had locker number
no,
25.
I've got the ointments to prove I remember.
I
Yes.
just remember there was a lot of grooming going on before you hit the floor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was there to witness that.
The thing is, none of this is usable.
No.
Everything that we just did is not usable.
Okay.
Right? That's
This is the gold.
Yeah.
Oh,
This
is
is the
it?
gold that
Yeah.
happened. You're right.
This is reality.
This
Yes,
is reality TV.
Yeah.
Got it.
Go with
It's
that,
reality.
okay?
You know, and which leads to my question, which was going to be, what makes a good reality show? And Phil, and since Amazing Race, how many Emmys has Amazing Race won?
Oh, here we go.
Going back to your first question, television, in my opinion, is all about moments. And reality, I think, has become so popular because we've found a new way of entertaining. And script writers are so unbelievable in terms of being able to create moments out of nothing. Like literally people sit down and they write a moment. And I think reality was another way that we could create opportunity for things to happen that weren't written on the page. And so when you throw interesting people into an interesting situation, out of that can come great moments. And when you cut those great moments together, we call it reality. But it really is just an it's about assembling great moments and cutting them all togetger and making entertainment.
But there's always going to be some manipulation, right? I mean, you've got to manipulate things, right?
You know, in our show on Top Chef, I think in scripted, there's a narrative, there's a plot. In our show, we do all of the things, or try to, that Phil's talking about, but the narrative comes after. You have to look for a natural narrative in the behavior that you tape and find, and sometimes you don't know where that's going, or you don't know where it winds up being after you see all the footage. And in our case, it can be hours and hours and hours of footage.
So it's a editing room kind of thing.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, you don't know. You don't know
creating it.
who's going to freak out at the challenge. You don't know who's going to shine. You don't know who's going to get in a fight. So you have to be able to find and follow the drama rather than, as Phil said, you have to create an opportunity for it to flourish and blossom.
Something good happens.
Yeah.
Well, they
But
talk
it doesn't always.
They talk about Frankenbiting, where you take a soundbite and you kind of stick it with something that's out of context. But do you really have to go there? Do you have to do that?
I honestly think, again, going back to what Padma was saying about with regards to structure, whether you're sitting around a campfire telling a story, whether you're making television or where somebody sits down to write something with a script, a story has a beginning, middle, and end, and it has to have a structure, and we have to have the characters, and we have to have this, they're all facing some adversary, and so we create opportunities for that structure to happen. But it's not until you start rolling the camera that you see what happens when you put people in that situation, and then you have to go back and you have to pull out the best moments and then create that structure to tell a story with a beginning, middle, and an end. So if you're finding yourself having to Frankenbite everything, then presumably your pre-pair producing, as in creating the opportunity for things to happen, didn't go so well, and now you're having to Frankenbite to kind of make up for something you didn't do back here.
How important do you think that casting is to the process?
Why don't you talk about that? Because
Well, we're different. We're like a party. You know,
Right.
this is about the audience.
Well, and you're working with celebrities too.
Right,
I mean,
we're
you-
working with celebrities. It's
but
about
in
an
a way
audience.
you're
feel-
casting too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because you're putting together a mix of people.
Right, we put together a mix of people, and we have 2 civilians, 2 normal people that come in, and we hope that the audience feels like they're at a party with some really shiny people who are having a really good time, and people who you've seen on television. You get to see who they really are, and I think it's a more fun thing to go on than sitting on a couch and talking to a talk show host and pushing your show. I mean, you get to play and have fun, and I think for the audience, what we want to do is just and as the host, is just allow things to happen and to allow people, especially these shiny celebrities who are usually a lot of fun or they wouldn't be there, to have a really good time, and the audience just digs that.
It is a really good time.
Yes, and Padma was there, and you were great, although your team let you down.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. But it's one of those things like I'll run into somebody who'll say, "Oh, I love being on your show, but we lost," and I don't even remember who wins or loses. I mean, it's just really about how much fun everybody's having.
Right. Padma, what about on your show? I mean, how important do you think casting is to the?
I'm not really involved in the casting because I'm also a judge, so I try to stay as away from it as I can. It's important, but you can never really tell until you get these people into the show and they're in the thick of doing whatever it is we're doing. Some people, don't have endurance. Some people don't have good strategy. Some people are very expressive and other people are not. So you never know what's going to click, because also it's not just each individual, it's the alchemy of those people together. Every season, the cast of chefs is like almost, I feel like a teacher with a new 4th grade class. And there is an individual personality to each of them, of course, but there is a class dynamic. And that's something that you can never orchestrate. It's just magic. You get lucky, or you have to watch what mushrooms, because you cannot force that. Our chefs are very, very serious about what they do, because it's really their career on the line, especially now, so many seasons on. A lot of chefs will give their sous chefs like paid vacation time because it's such great publicity for the restaurant. So there's no way to control that. We just hope for really compelling contestants. We don't even necessarily want like terrible people on. We just want people who are passionate, and now we always get that. It just matters about whether they're effective in the medium of television. And this is true for all our guest judges too. I can think of a handful of judges we've had on who are very acclaimed, very serious, very, very, very lauded amongst their peers. We're talking 4 Michelin-starred chefs here, and they're great at what they do, but they suck on television because they're so shy, and you just hope for the best, and sometimes you feel bad because as a person who's around all these amazing people, I know how amazing there is. And then I feel bad as the host because I feel like I've let the show down or let my guests down because I can't pull that out of them. And we're a very heavily formatted show. So everything comes down to seconds. We shave seconds off here, we administer, because especially in the beginning of the season, there's so much business to get through. And we're also a game show, so we have to be fair and show, we're ruled by a different set of regulations.
But that's a very interesting point now. The whole issue of authenticity, and that some people not really working on television because they're just not very good on television.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, for whatever reason, they're not very photogenic or whatever. RuPaul, I'm guessing that for your show, it's got to be operating in a somewhat, that whole issue of authenticity versus, what's fake, what's theatrical, that's got to be operating in a somewhat different way, right?
Everybody has this idea that reality is so fake, and the audience even thinks, oh, that was edited that way or that. if you see it on camera, it happened. And I got to tell you, reality TV is more real than real life. I got to say, everybody has this idea that there's all this trickery and Franken editing and Frankensteining and all. It's not on our show. And our show is personality driven. These are the most courageous characters in the world. And these are boys who were shunned from their families, from their neighborhoods, and everybody said, you can't do that, you can't. But guess what? They did it anyway. So we choose from that group of people who are already amazing and courageous, and we cast this show as an ensemble. Somebody represents the ingenue, somebody represents the old school, somebody represents the sort of the new school. And so we put all these people together, and you've got dynamite. You want to talk about reality? As reality. And it's real on a level that I can't even tell you. And I can't even convince you to believe it because we're trained to be skeptical of it, It's more realer than I can tell you, honey.
Well, your
it's
show,
very real.
but there are some that are not, that are completely
there are some.
contrived.
Sure.
Well,
and they're from my money anyway, just not.
well, you'd be able to
interesting
see it
watch.
in an instant. I mean, just being
Because you're a witch.
performer too. but
Because
you're
you're a witch.
Because I'm a witch.
a white
Yeah.
witch. A white witch, yes. With the
You know, and you've all, Phil, all of you have all seen the dissing and the hatred that reality sometimes gets from people. Oh, that's just another reality show. I hate reality shows. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting the way that reality is being depicted in public. For a long time, it was about taking the worst of what was reality and cutting it together and saying, this is reality television. You would never go to an award show and see the worst dramas, the worst comedies, and see a montage of the worst of what that genre has to offer, and then hand out the award for the best comedy or the best drama. People would be like, well, why didn't you make the montage out of the best stuff? Right. So there is some fantastic reality television, but I think there's a real stigma attached to the name reality, because a lot of times when people think of that, people who are writers and listen, unbelievable talents in this town who are out working and slaving over scripts and just like working so hard to come up with a great story, and then they see this reality, and in their mind they think, oh well, that was easy to do. They just got a camera out and they just started shooting, and look, it's terrible. Look at them screaming it. That's not all of this. I mean, the shows that we work on, we really are working on creating great moments of television. And going back to your casting question, we are blessed because we are able to show real diversity on our show. This is not a show about people being able to do one particular thing, whether it's singing or dancing or designing a home or whatever. This is America. And going back to our very first show where we had the Guidos openly, a couple who are from San Francisco, kissing each other, showing affection to each other on our show back in 2001 when it wasn't really done. We have tall, short, black, white, Republicans, Democrats, fit, unfit, the whole thing. I really feel that over the years we have had the most diverse cast ever. That's America. And that to me is what makes this show work, because we get to put a very diverse group of people together in an extraordinary situation, so-called ordinary people in an extraordinary situation. We have a very strong structure, and thankfully we've got our casting right over the years, and when you put those so-called ordinary people in this extraordinary situation, you get extraordinary moments.
Mm-hmm. But also, I mean, just because my show isn't a scripted show doesn't mean there's not writing on it. Like, we don't have a script, but our producers work really hard to come up with these new challenges season after season, and and every location has its own pluses and minuses. And I think, when you look at it, there are challenges that are great as far as being a chef, and then there are challenges that are great for TV. We try really hard to have both in every challenge, right. And so there's as much forethought, if not more, that goes into that, because you don't have a plot. All you're saying is like, here's this much money, and here's this location, and here's the time you have, and and that's it. So, I mean, those challenges are just fretted over and thought about and polished like stones. And it's, 12 seasons on, it becomes a real challenge.
Yeah, actually, and that's another interesting point that you raised, because when you've been on the air for a while, how do you keep the show fresh? And Phil, that's got to be an issue on your show.
Well, I do feel that we do have a secret ingredient in the sense that we have the world to choose from. So we've been to India, for instance, 10 times. We could go to India 100 times and we still wouldn't use up all the opportunities that India has to offer. So you will never see the same background on our show. Every time you look at our show, what's behind the contestants and where they are is always different. You can't say that about every show. I mean, shows that are on a like a variety type show where they're on a stage, maybe change the lights and the dressing and the background, but essentially you've got new faces behind sometimes the same places. We have a show where we have the luxury, even 24 seasons in, to have new faces in front of new places. And that helps to keep our show fresh, because honestly, I would not be able to have been on this show 24 seasons just from a personal standpoint and stay excited and want to get out and go and shoot this. Because on a personal level, and for those of us working on the show, we're like, look where we are, look what we're doing, and look at this opportunity we get to give to these people and then consequently share with an audience.
In case you all didn't hear, that was 24 seasons.
Yes.
Okay, 24 seasons.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Right.
I didn't mean, I'm sorry. I've lost count. Somebody said, you've been doing that show for 24 years? Like, no, 24 seasons.
Right, well, 24 cycles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
24 cycles.
No, you didn't say that. I'm saying sometimes people say, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
RuPaul, your thoughts on this, on keeping something fresh when people, especially because all of your shows have fans specific to the show, people who are like addicts about the show, people who talk about the show on social media, people who are sharing things. But for those people, those are the people, the very ones who you have to keep it fresh for, because those are the people who have seen the most, experienced the most, and are most familiar with the format. So how do you do that?
Oh, I don't know if you know, but all the producers on our show are gay. So, sorry about it. We're very, very creative people. So, and we draw from the vast history of not only the gay experience, but the outsider experience, the people who dance to the beat of a different drummer. And, our show showcases the art of drag, which is really about really mocking everything. So everything's up for grabs. And so, you take on any subject and you add drag to it, and it's hilarious and interesting, and because it takes on a different texture, and you go, oh my goodness. Oh, look at that through these eyes, And our show, RuPaul's Drag Race, at its core is really about the tenacity of the human spirit. And how interesting is that? The human spirit. Let's make a show about it. We love that. Human spirit. I think that's why the audience tunes in.
Jane, your thoughts about keeping things?
Well, we have this crack team of game creators, and so we're now in hopefully going into our third season, and I'm sure we'll have 10 more games. But we'd like to make the games as simple, but also a little bit challenging, but not to go outside of the reference level of. We don't want to go into Dostoevsky or Shakespeare. We kind of want to stay in People Magazine and Us Weekly, and in that way we end up having a lot of fun. But I mean, it can be challenging. Some of the games are like the music games I could never play. I am not up on my Beyonce or my Rihanna. I don't even know how do you pronounce her name?
Rihanna.
Rihanna, and she's beautiful and has a gorgeous.
But Viana is also lovely.
Yes.
Have you heard Viana's latest?
Yeah, no,
It's really lovely.
well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So it's keeping the games fresh so that people. Aren't watching the same thing over and over again. But I think the key to the show being exciting is that the celebrities and how much fun they have. And what's great about having the civilians on the show is that by the end of the night, you forget who the celebrity is and who the civilian is, and everybody's just having fun.
Really? That's an interesting idea. I mean, it's just kind of
everybody becomes one
experience.
Exactly, it's the human experience that happens on Hollywood Game Night.
That is what's compelling about all our shows, and I think that side of reality is very positive. It's a plus. You get to see a person react spontaneously to
yes.
what's coming at them, whether whether it's a game of charades and it's an actor, or someone who's from another country and ordinary doing something they've never done, or someone on national TV striving to do the best at what they want to do, and finally having, I think it must be a really moving thing for these people to always been told all your life that you shouldn't dress up, that you shouldn't do this, and be in a forum that actually exalts it and rewards being good at it, because they've been practicing this on the sly or in whatever way they're able to. And that's I mean, that's pathos, and that's victory, and that's great. And on my show, there are knives and fire, which helps a lot. And they really just want to be really, really good. Their pride, their ego, their whole sense of accomplishment is on the line.
Well,
literally.
There's something else too, that on all of your shows, you're giving ordinary viewers, people who are watching at home, a chance to see things and experience things they would normally never get a chance to experience. So most people are probably not going to have a meal prepared by a world-class chef. Most people probably do not know much about the drag community.
I know, I beg to differ. I think, this is what at its core, what happens is the audience gets to see someone break through that wall that we all have and that the audience has. Watching the crucifixion and resurrection of someone, everybody loves a comeback. So in the course of all of these shows, you get to root for someone who has possibly your own goals in life, or you relate to them because they're trying their best. And then when you see them break through and they get it, you go, yes, because you understand it on a human level. You understand because that's your story too. And that's what we do on these shows. That's what reality shows are. We tell the audience's story, not specifically, but at its core.
The connection.
Yeah, exactly. Breaking through, becoming a champion at what you want to do.
Which is when it becomes inspiring.
Right.
And I think that's what we hear so much from people, where the viewers are saying, that's me, that's my uncle, those are my parents. And so when I hear from viewers that they're inspired to take that once-in-a-lifetime trip, or that, people will send me photographs from our locations.
Are they nude photographs?
Sometimes. It's funny you should say that. Yeah, nude bungee jumping shot I just got the other day with way too much dingle-dangle. Wow. I couldn't work out what was the bungee and what was something else flapping in the wind.
Okay.
No, but in all seriousness, like when you see that and they've like literally gone to the frame, and they remember the frame, and then connecting with maybe the greeter or somebody who was at that challenge, and here's a shot with me, with Raul, and there's that shot, and they've got it. You know that you are doing more than just entertaining them in that moment. You are also inspiring them to think different, to maybe think, I could do that, or maybe I'm going to try that. So I love the fact that there is some takeaway, and that it doesn't always have to be about just pulling people down and laughing in people's face. I mean, again, I'm not to determine what a viewer watches. If people want to watch that stuff, that's totally their choice. But from a personal level, what I love is that there's some takeaway, that people walk away from watching the show and feel good about themselves, maybe feel inspired about what they've seen, and go out and maybe try something themselves. That maybe there really is something that people can take away from watching that piece of entertainment and feel good.
There's a bucket list aspect to your show. It's almost like people can watch it and go, wow, that'd be a really cool place to go sometime.
Which, I wrote a book which is called No Opportunity Wasted. And my book is all about helping people write a list of things to do before they die, and after I had a near-death experience. So for me, on a personal level, when I see David and Mary, who are coal miners from Kentucky, who have never owned a passport, never traveled outside their state, never gone on a plane, and suddenly they are on the other side of the world, where the world is, as I said at the beginning of the show, the world is waiting for you, and there they are somewhere. And I know that there are, as you were saying, there is a viewer sitting there thinking, that world I don't know when I might get to see that, or if I'll ever get to see that in my lifetime, but for them to dream and to think that there is something outside their own world, that is liberating, that is inspiring, that is motivational for people, and there's a great takeaway there. And then they connect, like you said, week to week. They want to follow David and Mary and see them on this journey.
It's funny, I wrote a book about teaching people how to use a push-up bra.
And how did that go?
It's good, it's
Yeah.
good, yeah. It's called Working It.
Working it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
A whole book.
On
Wow.
push-up bras.
I imagine that.
Yeah.
How many chapters?
7.
You're unbelievable. That's creativity right there.
One chapter is called A Tale of Two
You know, so little of what we're doing here is going to be usable.
Oh,
It's
come
just-
on. If you don't use that, if you don't use that, A Tale of Two Cities,
Yeah.
Right.
you got to use that.
You know how much of this would be unusable in print? That's what I'm thinking. That's where my mind
Put
is.
it on
You
the
can't say
web.
in the LA
It's
Times.
web content.
We will talk.
You can't invite us here
Oh, the
and not
stories I
go
could
to
tell
A Tale
you.
of
The
Two
stories I could tell you, but I won't.
Yes, sir.
What about,
Behave yourself.
you know, for your show, people don't get a chance. I think this is always attractive for people when they get a chance to see celebrities outside their role or outside how they're,
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be a lot of the
It is,
appeal
and
of
you know
it.
what's really great about all the celebrities is that show up is they come to play. I mean, every once in a while you'll see somebody kind of sit back like, what did I get myself into? Because it's very exposing, you know, to play these games and perhaps fall on your face and literally and metaphorically. And so, I mean, people just have to, you know, you kind of have to commit to it. And I haven't seen anybody, you know, walk away from that. Everybody kind of steps up and is game. We had Martha Stewart on a couple of weeks ago, and you know, she was very prim and proper, but then she just started getting
Let
into
it
it.
go.
Yeah, kind of. Martha Stewart never lets go.
Right.
But
Always in control.
in Martha Stewart way, you know, her eyes went like this
Ooh.
a couple of times. It was great, but she played. She was great.
Has there ever been a time when someone after the show has come up to you and said, essentially, thanks a lot?
Yes. Oh, you mean in a bad way?
Well, yeah.
Like, thanks, you made me look
yeah,
like an ass.
thanks for making me look
No.
like a complete ass
No,
on
no, no.
TV.
Everybody comes up to me and says, "Can I do it again? Can I do it again?"
Wow, really?
Yeah, unless they're, you know, just blowing smoke up my ass. I don't know. But everybody has a really good time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like a party. It's, you know, Sean Hayes created this thing out of his notorious game nights that he has at his home, and I've been to a few of them. And you know, he has a bunch of celebrity friends, and he has a bunch of like normal people friends, and it was always fun. That was a great dynamic to see the barista from the coffee shop hanging out with, you know, Megan Mullally and you know, being on the same team, and you know, we were thinking, isn't that a cool thing to do on television? You know.
Right.
So.
You're an actor, and usually you get a script, these are your lines, and depending on the creator, the writer, you have liberty or you don't have liberty. But this is almost like improv, right?
A lot of it is, but I have some great writers, Grant and Ann, who give me a ton of jokes, and some that I put in my back pocket. We were talking about.
Can you tell the one that you put in your back pocket? and you
Yeah,
pulled
yeah,
out
yeah.
the-
This is what I put. It looks like I made it up off the top of my head because I'm that good. But we had these Sports Illustrated models all on placards behind me, and I said, you know, as a feminist, I am appalled. As a lesbian, I am delighted. And so that's not something we passed by NBC.
Are you going to let that one go on? Can we get that cleared, that one? Because I like that one.
That's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
But you know, a lot of it is, and this is my favorite thing in life to do. I love to throw parties. I don't necessarily enjoy going to them, but I love to throw them and create an atmosphere for people to have a really good time. And I love, like, you know, we had Rosie O'Donnell on, and she and Donald Faison just, you know, they were almost beating each other up. It was hilarious. It was so much fun, and I just love to let that stuff go, you know. Like kind of the mock, I'm going to get you kind of a thing. I love that stuff.
That is a reality, though. I mean, if something just like happens before the
Have you
cameras.
ever been to a game night? Have you ever done it where, I mean,
I
people
have, yeah.
are uber competitive
I
and
mean,
it gets crazy?
Especially with if there's some alcohol involved. It
Oh,
gets,
well, everybody's drinking on our show.
Oh, they
too.
are?
Yeah, everybody's having
Is
a
that
drink.
out in the open on the show?
Yeah, where it's kind of, we in fact, we kind of promoted it that way in the beginning.
Do you drink?
I
during the
don't.
show?
I'm like 22 years sober, so
Okay.
there's part of me like,
Okay.
I don't want to
the whole
tell
drinking-
people to drink so much.
That's an idea you got from the Golden Globes, right? Everyone totally tanked.
Everybody tanked.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, the big ruse about the Golden Globes is that they feed you, and they don't. They put like the food out on the table, but by the time you get into the venue, it's gone, and just the booze is left, and you're starving, and people get really drunk at the Golden Globes.
Right. Well, yeah.
Not this girl, but other people.
Hunger, drink. That's what happens.
But we keep their glasses full. If they want to drink, they can. I mean, we had a couple of incidents where we had to like cut people. Yes, we had a couple of weepy contestants because they didn't do well. And I'm talking celebrities, and I won't give their names. You know.
It seems unfair somehow.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear the
I
names.
bet you would. I bet you would.
What about, and Phil, we can start with you, but the most challenging time you've had as a host, because all of you are the public face of your respective programs. And for you as host, what was the most challenging, the most kind of like, not really sure that went well, I wish I could have done that over?
Well, I've never really had any moments like where I think I want to go back. I mean, it's not like live TV, so I mean, they can easily cover up my mistakes. This last season, I actually like when they leave the mistakes in, quite frankly. This last season, we had so many teams arrive at the mat at one time. It's so competitive that I literally lost count. And I told one team that, you know, they were in a certain place, and then they weren't. And I said to them, just leave it in, because I was totally confused in the moment, and the audience got that there was mayhem. For me, the hardest part is, you know, I write the scripts, and so sometimes a show will drop out. We shoot 12 shows in 21 days, and this last season we had a show drop out, and so when I really wanted to be sleeping, because we don't get a lot of sleep, I was writing a show as we were flying to this other country, and I find that difficult because, you know, also because I can't get online when I'm on the plane to fact check everything and make sure I'm doing it all right.
What do you mean a show drops out? I don't understand what that means.
Well, sometimes we might be going to a particular country and then there's political unrest, or it's deemed that it's not safe for us to go somewhere, or they don't want us to go for one reason or another. It very rarely happens, but in this particular situation, we had something come out, so we have to, and by the way, my job in terms of what I have to do in terms of writing the show is a much easier job than collectively everybody having to scramble because there's no time to scout, there's no time to, and thankfully we work with an amazing team that can just like pick up, and I don't find that so much, I kind of like it because everybody's on top of their game, and that particular episode was really a good one. Because sometimes when you try to overproduce things, it doesn't work out as well.
It's almost when your back's to the wall sometimes.
Yeah, and I bet you on your show, because I mean you do such a great job. I mean, making a show, facilitating a show like you do, is way more difficult than people realize. And sometimes the best stuff will happen out of things that weren't planned, weren't discussed, and then you get this magic. Yeah. But if luck is the residue of design, then with all of our shows, what we are doing is we are creating the opportunity for things to happen. So you make the cake before you go, and then you hope that when you go out and you shoot it, you can put the icing on the cake. And if you don't get that, if you're trying to make the cake and ice it at the same time over here, you're done for. But as long as you got a good base and you've done all your work here, then you can be flexible over here to ice the cake. And in this particular situation, we were able to get a great show. And yeah, I love it. I mean, to answer your question, because I know it was a long time ago, but Ukraine, I was in immigration overnight. I couldn't get out, and the teams were running to the pit stop, and I was stuck there overnight in some room with plastic seats. That was not enjoyable. Right. And the toilet smelled.
Oh, yeah.
And I could only smell people, but I couldn't see them, and I woke up in the morning, and there was a huge room of smelly people in the room, and they'd been held in there.
Yeah, I mean, because you're going all over the world, are there times when you are in situations that just seem kind of like, wow, I'm not really sure how this is going to go? Or
here's the thing: if you ask most people on the street, what's the safest country in the world, they'd say America. A lot of people don't realize that there are a lot of more than 24 other countries around the world that are safer theoretically to be in than America in terms of your chance of being killed. So I think what we do is that we say to people, because if you think about it, most times when you see other countries, when most people see other countries around the world, they see it when something's going wrong. Make the assumption that wherever they travel around the world, something is going wrong. Our show allows people to see that there are good things happening around the world, and that, you know what, you can get on a plane and you can travel safely.
Right, but there are degrees of danger.
Well, we're not going to Afghanistan anytime soon.
Or the Ukraine.
Or Ukraine right now. We were there season 10. We're not going back right now. Right. But, you know, look, if you want to find some trouble, you can find some trouble here in this country too.
Around the corner.
Round the corner.
Exactly. Right, RuPaul, any moments that have gone in ways that you thought weren't good?
The hardest part of doing my show is when some real emotional thing happens and I make that ugly cry face, which is very hard to make because my face is...
It's ugly. It's ugly.
Well, it's just, my face is full
cry.
of Botox.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
right.
it makes it really difficult.
Really hard to cry.
I'm crying right now.
Oh.
Yes, I started crying the moment I walked through the doors, actually.
They took your tear ducts out.
They did. Botched eyes job. Yeah. No, it's hard. It's I like to be in control, and there have been some times when those kids have revealed something on there, and I don't even want to repeat some of the stuff, but these are people who have been through hell and high water to get to this show, and these are the people that our culture has shunned and said, you can't do that. I mean, dressing up in girls' clothes if you're a boy is like an act of treason in a male-dominated culture, and here we have champions, the best of the best. And so it gets emotional when they get real. Oh, it's gonna get real. Mm-hmm. And so, my face may crack and I try to cry, and that's difficult.
Right, but the emotion is something that you want, right?
I do, just not on my face.
Who cries pretty? Nobody cries pretty.
Well, in movies, I've seen people cry pretty.
Who's cried pretty? I mean, I'm trying to think of anybody that cries pretty.
Who cries beautifully?
Yeah.
Who used to be so cute when she would cry is Meg Ryan. She had a cute cry.
Yeah. I think Geneviève Bujold, or maybe a French, like Isabelle Huppert, maybe she cries beautiful. I know that Catherine Deneuve, she smokes beautifully, but you can't smoke in movies anymore.
Not anymore.
No, you can't do that. Padma.
Thank you. I'll be here all week. Thank you.
What was the question?
Difficult situation. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Do you cry ugly? We'll start there. Yes. Have you ever been tempted to cry on the show?
I try not to cry, but I have. I have gotten tearful. Because it's never easy to tell these people who have given up being with their families, taking leave off work, do not they're just sequestered is the best way to say it. And it's terrible.
This is a make or break thing.
It's not even that. It's like, it's terrible to tell someone to go home when they've tried their best. It never feels good. Even when there's a contestant who's a jerk, when you have to say that to them, it's not easy for me. And I don't ever get used to that. I really don't. Because as hard as, I've said this a million times, probably here, as hard as Top Chef looks on TV, it is way harder. Way, way harder in real life. And I'm standing there watching it all. Whether it's a quick fire or, whether they're standing there terrified at what's going to come out of my mouth, and they have no idea. When I'm giving the challenge, when I'm giving my opinion, and when I'm telling someone to go home. And when I go into the room and tell them, who has to come out, sometimes they're not even sure if those are the winners or the losers because they're so sleep deprived and they're trying to always see what is the angle, which is the best strategy. And so when you get into that mind space, it's really hard.
And which was the toughest one? What stands out?
I can't think, I can probably think of a few. Off the top of my head, it's not even sending them home. It's when I have to spit. I know it sounds weird, but when I have to spit something out.
Because it doesn't taste good?
Well, I can count on one hand in all the seasons that I've actually spit something out. And it's usually because something isn't cleaned properly or cooked properly. In one case, it was an artichoke and it was the beard of the artichoke. In another case.
So no one can spit pretty.
Nobody spits.
Well,
I don't know. Do they cut away? Do you go?
No,
they
I'm kidding. That's golden. No, because I remember, I never forget.
You must do it well then.
I'll never forget. It was Ariane. It was the New York season. She was the pastry chef of a restaurant she and her husband owned together in New Jersey. She couldn't have been nicer. We were filming at Tom's restaurant, and she made this dessert. She made this dessert out of lemon curd. And you know how sometimes you eat a chili and it's so hot you're just dying. You're dying. There's a nuclear bomb that goes off. This lemon curd was the sweet version of that, because it was also so sour, and I don't know how it was like napalm in my in my mouth. And she was such a nice lady, such a sweet woman, and I didn't know what to do, and I tried, and then I was gonna gag, so I just
Do you have
and
a spittoon thing? Or?
No, I don't. There's 17 cameras rolling, and I tried to do it discreetly, and I think my napkin even slid off my lap, so I'm asking Donatella, can you slip me your, and I've got this wad of lemon pudding, and it's just a horrible moment. I'm feeling bad mostly because, millions of people are going to see me do that to this woman who has kids, who has a thriving business, whose life it is to make pastry.
And you're about to spit it out into a napkin.
And I can't help it.
That's going to be her epitaph.
And I have to tell her why. I have to tell her exactly what I think. And I mean, on our show, it's never personal. It's always about, the food and what was wrong with it, and, what their intention was, and did they achieve their goal. It's never subjective, even though it has to do with taste. It's really not. So, like, even if I don't particularly eat meat in my own life very often, like you're never going to catch me ordering a bloody steak, for example. But if the challenge is to make a steak, and if someone is going to make a steak, if that's a great steak, I have to tell them it's a great steak. I cannot fault them for that. So there is as much objectivity as is possible to be. I mean, we all try to do that, but it's really hard when I have to do that. I mean, I think the only time Gail did it was probably at the French Culinary Institute, when somebody didn't cook the chicken properly. And my chicken was cooked, and Andre Saltner's chicken was cooked, and we're all looking at Gail's, and she's cutting into it, and it is decidedly not cooked.
Right.
Just very few, and the chef is always mortified. It's always mortified.
Right.
How can they not be?
Right. Well, that's the whole reason why they're there. Right.
Well, not to be mortified, but yes, to prove
Right,
that
no,
their
to-
mettle.
chicken,
Yeah.
Cook the chicken!
And but I mean, it happens. And the great moments wouldn't be great if you didn't have those moments. I mean, that's the high and low roller coaster that these chefs sign up for. And that is what the audience loves about, I think, shows like ours. On our show, the chefs are the real stars. And people are rooting for them. They pick their favorites. And the audience at home is also quick to turn, not only on the contestants they don't like or feel are not doing it in an honorable way, but against us. Like, there's always these, tweets that Tom and I get, like, you don't know what you're talking about, and to which we say, right, you were there eating the same meal we were, And on that day, that chef doesn't do well. It has nothing to do, everybody can have a bad day in the kitchen. You're just doing it with a million people watching.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Emmys themselves and what you think the importance of the Emmys specifically, and I guess award shows generally, but we're really talking about the Emmys here. What do you think is the importance to them in reality TV? Because these are relatively new categories. There was a, it's not an Emmy for reality shows.
It's 11 years, right?
Why are you only looking at Phil? With that question.
Because can I tell you why? He told me before we started, you were so beautiful. He said, if I stare at you, it's because it's very difficult to look to my left. So that's why.
We had the agreement that you weren't going to.
But I don't want her to feel bad now. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But he's
and you are
easily
also
able to
same
look
thing.
to his
He-
right. Is
I'll
that
tell
what you're
you.
saying?
I'll tell
since
you.
Thank you.
and you.
He's fine. Okay.
No, but
okay.
you're so close. He
reason
has
is-
bad eyes.
You can gloat about your Emmys now.
Don't you
Because
I've seen
I
him
wanted
walking
to
away
give
with
him,
some.
I wanted to give him, keep the road open for him, more Emmy gloating. Go.
No gloating. No. Here's the thing. There are some incredible reality shows that are being made, and the quality is just getting better and better, in my opinion. And I think over a period of time, more and more people who maybe hear the word reality and think of stuff that I don't watch myself, but I think more and more people will maybe give some of our shows a go and have a look at them and go, wow, you know what, this is actually really insightful, entertaining. And I think having this award amongst all those people who are incredibly talented in drama and comedies, writers, producers, and so on, in fictional television, for us to have a seat there with those people and for them to slowly learn more about the quality shows that do exist, I think they will understand the difficulties of making good quality shows. And I think that over a period of time, we will get their respect. And as far as acknowledging a show as being the show that is picked for the Emmy, I think what it does is it gives everybody something to strive for excellence. And so that is only going to be good for, in my opinion, for reality television as time goes on. That there is something to strive for, there is excellence to strive for. And all of us, I think, are thinking about how do we make our show the best show that we can possibly make it. And as we go on and the shows going from one season to the other, we look at what other people are doing, and I think it's good. It inspires you to be better.
Did you think that the awards have exposed more people to Amazing Race? Convinced people to watch that otherwise were...
Yeah, I think it came at an opportune time for us. Our ratings have been consistent for more than a decade. We've been sitting around 10 million. We didn't have the Idol ratings or Survivor ratings that they had when those shows first came out. But today, our show, if you look at it consistently over a decade, we've been sitting in around 10 million people. I think that when the first Emmy award was handed out to reality television and our show got it, I think people went, well, what's this show? And so, yes, people tuned in. I mean, I love what you guys did when you did the little with Gwyneth Paltrow and on Glee, where they did this little. I mean, when you are talked about in popular culture, that means that you're relevant. And so we were kind of the show that we were making this quality show, but I think that helped to sort of say, oh, what's this show? And so I think that it does it for all of our shows. When we're nominated, people go, well, let me check this out. Let me see what they're doing.
Right. Did the rest of you feel that way? That the Emmys are there's kind of a validating aspect to them?
The one time that Phil didn't win, we won. And we just couldn't believe it. I mean, we were so shocked by it, just really stymied. And we were, of course, really excited and really thankful. But, we had been going, it was kind of like always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And, we were always getting dressed up and going every year. And if you're a woman, it's, never in my life have I ever gotten ready for something that takes place so far in the future. Like, not even my wedding did I get ready like this. But, we went every year. And every year we were like, okay, fine. And, we were okay with that. We never thought for a minute we would win. And even when the year that he didn't win, we did win, it was like, we kind of couldn't believe it. It was like that person that didn't know what to do with it because they'd never had it, never thought that it would come to, we were kind of like, oh, and since then, of course, and also there was the thing where the year we won, there were a couple of people who couldn't go to the Emmys, and a couple of people were like, I'm not going to go this year, and we won. So now we never want them to come. Like certain people at the production company, certain people at Bravo that we're like, right. You can never come again, So it's a great thing. I mean, right. We don't, we're a cable show, and we don't have the budgets that a lot of different shows have. So we are always excited to be invited to the party. I mean, we still feel that way. And, when I'm standing there and Matt Weiner's to my left and, all these amazing people like Jane Lynch are to my right, I'm just glad to be there. And I, hope my sweat stains don't show. I don't know. It's an absurd place to be in an absurd position. Like, I've been in a lot of amazing rooms in my life, and And going to the Emmys from start to finish is always a surreal experience for me. I'm always like, the minute that they, announce that Phil can come up to the stage again.
Would you stop with this already? Come on.
I honestly, I just exhale and I'm like, all right, let's go to the bar, So it doesn't, you never get used to it. I don't know. It's another line on my bio. It's like 3 more words on my bio.
Yeah.
RuPaul, are you also getting tired of hearing about Phil's Emmy wins?
No, I've never heard of Phil before.
So this has all been a learning
very
experience
informative.
For you.
What
You've
it's
learned
like.
so much.
How you've just forgotten all about our locker room days in the 90s. All just gone.
One last question. I want to ask all of you, and we can just go around the table. Jane, we can start with you. But since reality is really something that I think in the past 15 years has really changed television, and I think we could all agree on that, because look at where we were 15 years ago, the kinds of programming choices that people had then, and then look at everything they have today. What do you think the future of reality TV will be? And I guess that also is linked to what's the future of television going to be, because now we're talking about people getting rid of like cable bundling and people just watching stuff whenever they want to watch stuff, and watching Netflix and watching on their computers, and everything's going to be on demand.
Well, I think there's, as with anything, there's a dark side and a light side, and I think we all probably agree what is not the best reality television, and what reality television is at its very best, which is those moments you were talking about, those unscripted, uncontrived moments of human beings relating to each other, where the stakes are really high, and what comes out, the triumph of the human spirit. Maybe not so much in our game, where we just get them drunk and they play charades, but it's watching people behave in and interact with each other in an honest way that people relate to. And I think with all of these new formats, I don't watch television anymore. I think, judging a show by the Nielsen's ratings is ridiculous. Yeah. And we're still doing it, aren't we? Who's a Nielsen family anymore? I don't know who those people are. But and I don't know that we can even measure these if we have metrics anymore. But with all the formats, I think we're just going to have more of everything. There will be more, maybe not so great, and there will be more great stuff, and we'll have choice.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of choice now.
Yeah.
It seems like it's, there's so many possibilities of what to watch. But Phil,
I think it's going to get harder and harder to make something to really stand out, because we live in such. I mean, even in the decades since we've been making the show, people weren't interacting with our show the same way. I live tweet the show now, and I'm getting instant feedback from viewers about things. My daughter does not watch TV. Everything she watches, all she does is she watches moments. She goes online and she hears about something that happened on Fallon. She goes and she...
How old is she?
She's 18.
18.
So she goes and she looks up what happened on Fallon when Jane was on Fallon, and looks it up and watches that moment of television. Right. So I think to make a show and to have people turn up like an event, I think it's going to get harder. And if you look at what's happened with the numbers of the reality shows, when you think about Survivor at one point was hitting 50 million people. Yeah. I mean, it was a phenomenon. It was just, I just don't think we're going to see that again.
Don't you wonder if especially for younger people, since everything's about finding a certain moment, finding something on Instagram, don't you think that there is missing some kind of arc to things? I mean, imagine if somebody said, "Oh, I don't want to see the whole thing of Hamlet. I just want that to be or not to be
one
speech."
moment. Yeah,
that's all I want to see.
Well, I think you've hit on something. I think that I mean, I watched the Good Wife the other night, and I sit down and I immerse myself in watching that show and just really enjoy the structure of a story and to be taken away on a story. I think at the end of the day, as humans, we love a good story. Whether we're playing games with Sean at home and we're having fun, or whether we're on your show, it is about experiencing life and having moments. So what I hope ultimately is that, and I believe this, is that story will always rule. Story will be king. And however that's told, whatever the medium is, however we watch it, at the end of the day, we all love a good story. So it's up to us as television makers and hosts or actors or whatever it is to tell a good story and to hold the audience captive. We're on a stage, there's an audience out there. What can we do to bring them to watch what we're doing? and that won't change.
RuPaul, is story king?
Absolutely. There's certain snobbery about reality TV, and the truth is the audience is so broad for entertainment. There's something for everybody. And actually what you're saying is, oh, will reality prevail? And we're past that. We're way past that. In fact, reality is impacting scripted now, and so many shows that their format is in a reality format where it's filmed like a reality show. It's like Padachevsky's network, how it predicted where we would be. Well, now we're light years beyond that, and reality it's reflected in that. So, will it be here forever? Absolutely, because it is story driven, and the audience wants to see itself, and the audience is broader because of so many different formats to watch this stuff on. And the 18-year-old, they want an abbreviated show because guess what? They're watching television at the stoplight. Yeah. They're seeing the episode at the stoplight.
While they're having coffee. Hey, did you see this thing?
Yeah, it's done. It's done. Anybody got time for that? You know what I'm saying? Right. So, yeah, we're way
talking
past
about
that.
A moment. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean.
Does it bother you that people are skipping all the boring parts?
Nothing bothers you. If you want to survive, let me tell you something. If you want to survive on this planet, don't let things bother you. Angels fly because they take themselves lightly. It's not so serious, and there's a certain snobbishness around reality. It's, oh, poo-poo, that's for Betty and Joe beer can. We don't do it. It's like, no. I've seen you after a few cocktails, and that's you, whether you like it or not. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But good TV appeals to a broad audience, whether it's on Netflix or on your computer, or talking about what they're saying, like it's short attention span theater. That's all it is, But you can't build suspense in 90 seconds or a Vine or 6 seconds or whatever. And I think that is. I mean, I don't really see, Phil's show, my show, what I presume, yours too. I mean, I think they're just game shows that are now called reality shows. I mean, there's one kind of reality show, and there's another reality. There's a competition reality. And competition reality is just a new name for a game show. It's just the game show evolved. And that's kind of like live action sports.
Yeah, but on our show, it's a reality competition show, but the challenge and the personalities are expanded. You actually get invested in the players of the game. It's not such a quick shot, and that's why the casting and the personalities are so strong. And they come with the story. And then a story develops over a period of time while they're playing a game. And by the way, it's really what real life is. Our show is based on a lot of the challenges I've had in my 32 years in show business, where you have to market yourself. You've got to write a book. Now you've got to design a line of clothing, or now you have to come up with a campaign. So all of these things you have to be good at. And every person in the audience can take away something from that because you get to see a person evolve. And it is a game because that's what life is. It's all a game, not to be taken seriously.
You sounded a little note of skepticism about the 15-second.
Well,
I have been surprised looking at Instagram, for instance, how people have almost done reality shows in 15 seconds.
Yes.
I've been like, wow, that was pretty amazing what you did with the editing in that.
Yeah. Sure, yeah.
You actually told a story in 15 seconds, which
I didn't, before
Well,
Instagram, I'm not sure I saw that.
television commercials.
I hope that my daughter will also learn to appreciate the idea of actually letting a story wash over you.
Yeah. Unfold, absolutely. And I think we will. I think as human beings, we will.
I think we will go back to it because if you think about where storytelling started around a fire and people were sitting there and they were filling in time and somebody was very funny and they sat there and they told a story. And ultimately, I think we live off story. It's what we crave. We all need it. We want to hear. It's why we read. It's why and it's all around us. I think what's interesting about how reality has changed and how it's changing are the platforms that you can now use to tell a story. Like you said on Instagram. I mean, in 2001, somebody said to you they're going to tell a story in 15 seconds on Instagram. They'd be like, Instagram, what planet is that on? I mean, now where are we going to be in 10 years' time? Yeah. So I just hope that there's always a place for us as human beings to sit down and actually take time to hear a story and let it wash over us. And it's like reading a good book. There's something about that. We were talking about reading the paper and tactile, touching and like immersing yourself in it, rather than just like a quick, oh, that's that story done, this story done, that story. I worry a little bit about my daughter not.
We thought
Not
that
getting in deep to anything,
we thought that the VCR was going to stop people from going to the theater, and that hasn't happened. I think maybe there was a period where people didn't go to the movie theater as much, but we go to the movie theater a lot now. For that experience, that communal experience, to see a movie with a bunch of other people, and it's like the sitting around the fire, like you were saying, with a community of people. And I think a story in an extended, a story that's long enough to wash over you, and where you can come deeply invested, I think will always be around.
Well, like your show, you must love when because you're facilitating moments, right?
Yes, right.
So you really are like the master of ceremonies, and you're judging whether Ru's being funny, or you're monitoring the moment, the story. And when it's all going well for you and you're in that moment, that must be like the greatest feeling.
Yeah.
And now somebody is watching you and your show and feeling like they're in your living room and they're with you.
Yeah.
And you don't want that to go quick. In fact, when the show ends, you might feel like, man, I wish I could go and hang out with them a little longer.
Well, that's the thing. I think that there's a different kind of pleasure that you get from those short hits, like those YouTube moments or a little skit. And if you really, think about it, like we all watch things that we laugh, that someone sends us by email in the morning, and then there are things that, elicit a different response when we're settling down at night and maybe watching a half-an-hour program or sitcom or something. And then, there are those great movies, and they don't come around that often. But when they do, you're right, you don't want a good book to end. You don't want a great movie to finish. You want, you want that slow burn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that will always be there. Like, I think there are moments where, like, our show, with commercial and stuff, winds up being an hour. And I don't think we would be as good a show if we were half an hour.
But think about further to what you're saying, if you think about the investment that a viewer makes in the characters that you put on the show, to see that character arc of this person who comes in, maybe they're lacking, the confidence, and slowly they build, and then maybe they eventually become the winner. That's kind of what I love about the fact that we make a season, and that we do the same with your show, where people are investing in characters, and they don't want just like a quick
but there is a thing. Listen, we're all over 30, and there's the younger people. Listen, they're all ADHD. They and the quicker they'll
Because
say
they've
for
been
a
watching
movie.
15-second videos.
Right. Well, that's true. And listen,
Yeah, there's a divide. Like I notice it, I don't, even just technologically, I have a Twitter account, I have an Instagram account, and I actually prefer to Instagram, but I am not at the forefront of what's going on. I can't even enjoy all that there's out there because I wrote papers on a typewriter in college, I mean, I remember that. And so I can feel it. I can feel it with other people in my office. I can feel it when I walk down the street or take the subway. The girl next to me is so much faster. Like even, so it's a generational thing in the way that our parents couldn't understand certain things about our lifestyle. It just does happen, and you can't stop it. You can
being
just
in the moment
hang on as much
so
as
much
you
harder.
can. Yeah.
So, we have a thing now with my daughter being 18, as I mentioned. When we go to dinner, and we take her friends out at college and stuff, and we'll go to dinner, and I just say, all right, stack it. And everybody just puts all their phones in the middle of the table, on silent, stacked. And then I jokingly say to them, the first person to reach for the phone pays the bill, but I always get lumped with the bill. But the point is, like, just the idea of being in the moment, and it's like on your show where that's not just about one moment. It is an event that you go to, like going to the theater, like people like going to the theater. And so I don't think we're ever, as human beings, ever going to get away from that. I think we're always going to want to invest in something. And if there was one episode of Amazing Race, if they were standalone, episodic, as opposed to a series, I mean, the difference between how the audience feels about that winner after 12 legs racing around the world, 50,000 miles, going to all these different countries, and we reflect on where they're going and all the things they went through, and the crying and the screaming and the thing, and then they win. It's like that viewer's been invested for 12 weeks. There is something that you can only get in that moment
It's the hero's
that comes
journey.
from the investment.
It's the hero's journey,
The
you
hero's
know.
journey,
And we
yeah.
never tire of that story.
Also,
It's in our
here's the
DNA.
good news. You know, because there are a million channels and a million forums, there's also opportunity for amazing content to bubble up. You know, if you want a show on catfish noodling, there it is. You know, somewhere in the universe, it's out there. You know, so in a way, it's given shows opportunity to even exist that would have never gotten on the air when we had 3 networks.
Do you think that CBS would have picked up Drag Race in the old days?
No, hell no, no. We entered on a window in our cultural window where things had opened up, and trust me, I've lived long enough. That window can close any second now, and you know, we're on logo television, which exists in a time when that couldn't have existed, you know, before. So there is room for everybody, but you have to pay attention to who the audience is, who they're in the market, what they're in the market for, and you have to service them. Otherwise, you're out of there. You're out of there, and that's the game we're in. And it's probably always been that way, but I think the stakes are higher now because there are so many networks and there are so many eyes, and people are fast. You know, kids today, you know, they're you know, it's a different world. So if you don't adapt, then you'll get
You'll be
left
obsolete.
behind. Yeah.
Well, thank you, all of you, for joining me for this wonderful talk on reality TV and on the Emmy Awards. And I appreciate you all coming out and being honest and very candid in your assessments. Thank you so much.
Thank you.